Today we're going to be talking about dividing fractions. So here's what Tim and Moby have to say about dividing fractions.
Ew, how'd that get in there?
These are for you.
How do you multiply and divide fractions? From Joe. You're in luck, Joe. We're going to have to multiply fractions to get through this brownie baking mess. Okay, we're baking for 40 people? Better not be as bad as it sounds. Well, 1 1/2 kilograms of brownie mix will make enough brownies for 10 people. So how many kilos of that mix will we need for 40 people? 40 tenths times 1 1/2. We can reduce that first part to make it easier. 40 divided by 10 is the same as 4 over 1. Let's get that 1 1/2 out of its mixed number form. 1 times 2 halves equals 2 halves, plus 1/2 is 3 halves. When you multiply fractions, you multiply the numerators and denominators separately. 4 times 3 equals 12, and 1 times 2 equals 2. 12 halves is 6. So we need 6 kilograms of brownie mix? You need that in grams? Okay. Well, 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. So we can multiply 1,000 by 6 pretty easily to get 6,000 grams. But I just told you. Okay, fine. I'll show you how to do it by dividing fractions. We'll start with our original fraction, 12 divided by 2. Now, to figure out how many grams that is, you can divide by the fraction 1 kilogram over 1,000 grams. Dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by its multiplicative inverse. That's math speak for an upside-down fraction. To get that, you just flip it. 12 times 1,000 is 12,000. 2 times 1 is 2. And 12,000 halves equals 6,000. All right, Moby, it's confirmed. We need 6,000 grams of brownie mix. You can't just quit. This was your idea. Ah.
What are you watching?
So you're going to chat with your AB partner now about what you notice about dividing fractions, how they are similar and how they are different to multiplying fractions. Okay, so our vocabulary word for the day is reciprocal. Reciprocal is what Tim was referring to as the multiplicative inverse of a number. Basically, that's a really fancy way of saying that you switch the number from top to bottom and bottom to top, right? So the numerator becomes the denominator becomes the numerator. So our example here, if our fraction is 3 over 5, the reciprocal of 3 over 5 would be 5 over 3. So I've just switched the spots that they've gone into. So then when we are writing reciprocals of these numbers, 3 over 7 becomes 7 over 3. 2 over 3 becomes 3 over 2. 1 over 9 becomes 9 over 1. 6 over 7 becomes 7 over 6. We have 11 over 5. 4 over 1 are just plain 4. 8 over 5. And 1 over 3, because this would be 3 over 1. So today we are going to be working with fractions, and we're going to be working with the reciprocal of a specific fraction. So when we are dividing fractions, basically what we have to do is we have to follow the same steps as when we multiply. There's just one step that we add in there, and we change, that is changing the second fraction to the reciprocal. And when we do that, what comes along with that is that the division sign becomes multiplying. So for those of you who don't like to divide, you actually don't have to divide when you're dividing fractions. As soon as you change the division sign to multiplication, and then you change the second fraction to the reciprocal, we are following the exact same 5 steps that we have been for the past while when we have been multiplying fractions. Okay, so here are the steps. And you're writing these down in your math notes. So when you divide the fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So obviously, if we're multiplying, you're going to change that division sign to that multiplication sign. Once you have done that, this, for multiplying fractions, would have been step number 1, where you're going to indicate the intent to multiply the numerators by placing a multiplication sign between them, and then you're going to do the same thing for the denominators. You are then going to reduce your fraction by dividing the common factors into both the numerator and the denominator. You're going to multiply the reduced numerators to get your new numerator. You're going to multiply your reduced denominators to get your new denominator. And then, of course, you are going to reduce the fraction, either changing it to a mixed number or putting it into lower terms if you have another common factor. That is, if you haven't reduced all the way up here in step number 4. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you have a question. So the questions that you would have been getting are going to look like this. This becomes a multiplication, and then we switch these around. You then need to rewrite your question to look like this, where you have 8 over 9 times 6 over 5. Once we get to this point, really, you have been working with questions that look like this for the last 3 classes, so most of last week. We then take a look and we can see that 6 and 9 have a common factor of 3, and then we divide, and then we have 8 times 2, which gives us 16, 5 times 3, which gives us 15. We have our answer here, and because it's an improper fraction, we're also going to turn that into a mixed number. So this is our answer. Okay, so the next 2 you're going to do on your own in your math notes. Okay, so that's how we get the next answer. Here again, we're going to change the division sign, and then we're going to work with the reciprocals here. So I've got 3 over 7 times 14 over 3. So I've got 3 times 14, 7 times 3. So I've got 2 over 1, which just becomes 2. Okay, so your assignment today, you are going to be working on the following questions. We are going to do anything that has more than 2 as bonus, and we're going to go over one of those examples in a minute here. So you're going to go through these questions, and we did mark them in class as well. So if I have a situation where I have 3 of those questions together, if I have 3 over 4 divided by 2 over 9, the brackets mean I have to do that first. You should have remembered BEDMAS from the beginning of the year last year. So you should know that brackets go first, then exponents, but we don't have any exponents that we need to worry about. Then in order, division and multiplication, and then in order, addition and subtraction. So that's BEDMAS, but really we only have to worry about the brackets part of that for today. Okay, so my bracket part becomes 3 over 4 times 9 over 2. I actually do not have any common factors, so I have 27 over 8 as my answer to here. So I've got my answer here, so now I'm going to divide that answer by 5 over 6. I'm going to switch to a different color again. So 27 over 8 divided by 5 over 6 becomes 27 over 8 times 6 over 5. I've got a common factor here. I end up with 81 over here and 20 in my denominator, in which case I know that when I convert, it becomes 4 and 1 over 20. Okay? There are other ones as well that have, that have 2 brackets for your bonus, where we would have something like 1 over 4 divided by 5. And then I've got divide that by 2 divided by 1 over 5. So I would take care of the brackets first. Okay, so I'm going to do the first bracket in black. So I've got 1 over 4 divided by 5 over 1, which becomes 1 over 4 times 1 over 5, and I get 1 over 20 as my answer because there are no common factors. Okay, so I've got 1 over 20 as my answer here. I'm going to do the second bracket in purple. Okay, so I've got 2 over 1 divided by 1 over 5. This becomes 2 over 1 times 5 over 1, and I've got an answer of 10 over 1. Okay, so what I would then do is I would have my first answer divided by my second answer. So I have 1 over 20 divided by 10 over 1. Switch that to my multiplication by multiplying by the reciprocal. I've got 1 over 20 times 1 over 10. I have no common factors, so my answer ends up being 1 over 200. Okay, so that's how we would do those ones.